Hi, Jeff. How are
Hi,
you?
good. How are you?
Good. So, we're here to have a short conversation about your journey through our institute over the last 7 years. So, can you tell me how you got to meet us and what was your, situation at that time?
Yeah, sure. See, I have been diabetic since '98.
Mm-hmm.
At various levels of diabetes. I became sort of insulin dependent sometime in the middle of like 2005. I used to live in Ann Arbor, Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to actually see a few doctors there at the University of Michigan, University of Michigan Health System. And then 2011, I moved to the Pennsylvania area. Before that, of course, I lived in New Jersey for a year, and then I moved to Pennsylvania in 2011, and that is when I was introduced to your office through my family doctor. I used to see a family doctor in the Pennsylvania area, and I was looking for a doctor who can help me with my diabetes situation. And that is when I got in touch with you. Um, a brief background of me of trying to deal with my diabetes in the last 20 years has been sort of the last 7 years. I think that I've been managing my diabetes a lot more productively, a lot more educated. Partly because the most of the doctors that I used to see in the past, they only treated me as a patient. They only were okay. Here is one more patient. Okay, he has got this issue, and here are the medication. That's it. There was really not one-to-one interaction on understanding my lifestyle, understanding what I eat, understanding how much I really understand about the disease itself and
Mm-hmm.
the measurement and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a big difference, that I started noticing, ever since I started coming to Dr. Arvind Kavle's office, because I thought, that he's not only trying to treat the disease, but he was also very actively educating me in trying to understand what happens when, and also he was all the time emphasizing on the measurement. Like I used to, the first few years, like I used to be really afraid to come to his office because I knew that I'm not following his instructions, because he used to ask me to get as much data as possible, because that would help both myself and him to treat me better. The most popular comment that he used to make, that I always remember being an engineer, also is that what you can't measure, you can't control. I by training I am the engineer, and I used to tell all my colleagues and all my junior engineers tell the same thing, guys. You got to measure, get as much data as possible, so that you know where you are, and then you can steer yourself where you want to go. And I myself was not following that. Part of that reason also was, until recently, that measurement of the blood sugar is not very easy, for common people, and especially for people like me, who have to travel a lot on work. It's impossible for me to check my blood sugar even once a day. As long as I'm in at my station, at my home, at my office, I was able to do that probably a couple of times a day, but that happens very rarely because I travel like 20 days in a month on work. And somehow, I was given the education and given what I thought I knew about my diabetes situation, I was able to somehow control and manage, but not to the extent that I would like to, not not to the satisfaction of my doctor. It came to a situation when my A1C got beyond 7, and that is when I got really worried. Not that I did not started seeing any kind of side effects of diabetes, but it was only a question of time. And I think if I stayed at 7 and above, it was only a matter of a few years or a few months, when I start getting into the complications related to the diabetes. And I did have that, 10 years back, when I was in Michigan, because my diabetes was completely uncontrolled. I started having the issues with my eye,
Mm-hmm.
and I was put on an intense every 3 months, I was supposed to see an eye doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and that was when my doctor put me on insulin.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, I was on the pills, and nothing was happening
Mm-hmm.
with the help of the pills. Of course, the insulin recommendation sort of brought back the control on my eye situation, but still it was not adequate enough. And I think I was, as far as I remember, I was always above 6.6, 6.7 as far as my A1C goes. But 6 months back, and I used to always, debate this with the doctor that yes, I do agree that, we need to measure, we need to know what is happening, and I'll be very happy if something can tell me every 10 minutes, what is my blood sugar. It's not that I don't want to measure, but the problem, is the technology available today is so painful and so inconvenient.
And life gets in the way usually.
Exactly,
Right.
and it just destroys your quality of
Mhm,
life.
mhm.
When you are on the road in the middle of the airport, you are not going to sit there and poke yourself in front of everybody and then try to understand what your blood sugar is.
Correct.
So, that I think changed 6 months back, 6 or 7 months back. I think when, of course, doctor has always been asking me to switch over to CGM and insulin pump and things like that. The CGM part of it looked very attractive, but the pump really scared me, because maintaining that, traveling with that, plus just that psychological
So CGM is continuous glucose monitor.
monitor. Yeah,
Okay.
so that was okay. I was okay with that.
Mhm.
Anything that could help me to understand my blood glucose was okay.
Mhm.
But walking around with the
With the pump on
with
you.
the pump on me, and just like socially and psychologically we are against it.
Mhm.
Especially I come from a country in India where there is so much of lack of awareness of the diabetes that if you tell somebody that you are on insulin, which is a strictly no situation,
Mhm.
people already think that you are terminally ill
Mhm.
and you are on your way out or something like that. That is the kind of concept that people have. They somehow want to get away from the medication, and somehow they believe that they can.
Mhm. So
That
the one thing that I remember is that we've always fought with this problem with having low blood sugars,
Yes.
overnight low blood sugars.
Exactly.
And would you be able to explain more how we went through that process?
Yeah, I think the one of the reason I think you also told me that several times that I am putting more insulin than I really need.
Correct.
Partly also because it was just my concept was you take enough insulin, your sugar will never rise. Just because you did not know what was really going on, and I'm always on the road, and I'm not able to eat very healthy food all the time. So I thought the safest way is to just pump more insulin,
Right.
and that was so counterproductive.
Right.
It resulted in a lot of low blood sugar incidences. What you know probably is only 50% of what really happened, because a lot of times in the middle of the night I wake up with
Sure.
low blood sugar, and I just eat sugar and some treat that and then sleep. I don't even bother to check
So
because I
yeah.
know what is going
So
on.
not only that, from a economic standpoint, you end up using up a lot more insulin than you really need.
Exactly.
Right. So
Exactly.
it also comes back to how much insulin do you need to buy,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So learning about how your medications work
Mm-hmm.
and how you react to your medications. Obviously, that might be something that you have also learned over the last 6 or 7 years.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
yeah. So as far as traveling, you said you do a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
on the road, and obviously your employer is also looking at in terms of how productive you might be. So what do you think has changed in terms of your productivity as well as your leadership in your group, as well as your ability to deliver your projects, when you look at and say, in the last year or 2 or 3, that you're not having those episodes anymore as compared to when you were having? Is there any incidents or history that you can tell us in terms of productivity?
Well, productivity, of course, I don't know if I can really relate that to my productivity, because it depends on the individuals
Mhm.
and how bad is your diabetes situation. But one thing I can tell you that I used to have these low blood sugar episodes when I'm right in the middle of the meeting with the customer.
Mm-hmm.
It happened at least 3 or 4 times,
Mhm.
and it was a little bit of embarrassing situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that got my employer also worried.
Mm-hmm.
Is he taking care of his health, or is he putting too much into the work?
Mm-hmm.
To the extent that they even started advising me not to be on the road that much.
Mm-hmm.
But then that was not acceptable. I mean, they knew that unless, given the nature of the work, unless you
Are on the road.
you can't produce,
Correct.
and you are not productive, and that is not good for the company either.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact, one of the time also was like even my boss was there in the meeting, and I suddenly almost fainted,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to be immediately taken out and administered. I used to always carry a packet of glucose
Mhm.
to treat those kind of situations. So at that point of time, my management almost thought about changing my department.
Mm-hmm.
Said hey, you can do this, you can do that, but for me the selling marketing was my passion, so I didn't know how to do it. So those kind of things now I can completely avoid.
Mhm.
I know exactly what is happening every 20 minutes, every 30 minutes. I carry that meter all the time, and I'm able to administer the medication or eat exactly based on what I need to. So from that point of view, using the CGM has significantly improved my quality of life and my productivity, obviously,
Mhm.
because now I'm no longer worried.
So you don't have that question of whether you're going to be steady or not, right? Yeah.
Plus, of course, before, when my blood sugar was not totally under control, I used to feel tired very, very quickly.
Easily. Uh-huh.
Especially, during that evening time, I mean, I'm just not in the mood, and that also resulted in, some, difficulty in dealing with the social.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So by 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the evening, you are already so tired, and you don't know what is going on in your
Mhm.
body, and you are also worried about what I'm going to eat.
Mhm.
Is it going to cause
Make it worse.
more problem? Is it going to make worse? And now I have to meet my customer for the dinner. So now when your mental situation is like this, and you
Sure.
are already so tired,
Mhm.
you are not able to do the justice.
Correct.
For those kind of meetings.
So one of the objectives of this institute is to make management of diabetes less of a burden in the middle of life,
Yes.
right? So at the same time, it is one of the other goal is to minimize the impact of real life on management of diabetes. So it goes both ways. So what you're telling us is that your classic case of improving both those scenarios, making diabetes management less of a burden, at the same time minimizing the impact of life happenings on the management of diabetes.
Yeah.
So essentially, when we have used technology in combination with human intervention, the product is much better.
Yes.
Rather than just throwing medication, just throwing
Mhm.
technology at people, or simply saying, okay, I don't want to use technology at all. So we have sort of meaningfully combined the two
Yeah.
in a way that actually helps you function better, work better, live life less.
And basically,
under the
what
cloud.
I think you are doing, is through using the technology, you are actually passing on the control of the disease to a great degree to the patient himself.
Right. So self-management has
And
become
self-management, and that self-management is both satisfying as well as educative.
right.
Like for example, before I started using technology, on managing my diabetes, I almost cut all of my food, that I liked. I mean, because you were not very sure, what is going to happen.
Correct.
Because everybody is saying don't eat this, don't eat that, and there is no dearth of this free suggestions,
Advice, yes.
free advices
Right.
that everybody gives.
Right.
Today I don't do that because I know every food is okay if you are diabetic, but if you are taking it at the right time and at the right proportions.
Right.
So I'm able to now enjoy all of the foods that I used to miss. Still keep my diabetes, perfectly under control. because I know at what time what I can eat
Mm-hmm.
and what proportion I can eat.
Sure.
So that ability itself has significantly improved my the quality of personal life.
Correct.
Other than the business life and things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
And would you think you are able to educate people around you in your family, friend circle that have similar problems from what you have learned?
Absolutely.
Right. So
Absolutely.
that sort of is our goal in terms of not just empowering the individual, but also empowering people around that individual, the family members, inner circle, as
Yeah.
well as the extended circle. So this can actually extend way beyond the individual in the community if people are willing and able to accept.
Just spreading the awareness.
Correct.
I mean, I remember you used to tell me that different people's body reacts differently. Their sugar response for different types of food.
Correct.
And it's very, very difficult. It's a very complex matrix and mapping and things like that. But now, with the use of technology, individuals can understand. Now I'm able to understand what type of food, how it reacts with me.
Correct.
Now I can build the database myself. Not only build the database by myself, but I can also spread that message.
Right.
Like, these are the things will help you. These are the things may not help you. Or these are the things are the worst. So that awareness within the community also, if empowered people like us can promote more,
Right.
that itself will help the community.
Correct.
In terms of managing the
Yes,
disease.
so that's the value of how we are talking about in terms of our programs.
Mhm.
Is to initially empower the individual that we are treating, managing, and then spreading that awareness to the immediate family and so on and so forth. So the value of these programs, we hope,
Mhm.
will spread significantly wider and deeper in the community, and that's the objective of where we're going. So any final thoughts that you have to say in terms of what you plan to do and how you have come this far?
Well, I'm definitely very happy, and very grateful about all of the guidance I received in the last 5-6 years, not just oriented towards treating me as a patient, but empowering me and educating me, so that I can now take better control of the situation rather than just depending on you. I think, I hope, and I believe that, you are doing to a lot of other of your patients as well who are technically inclined.
Mhm.
I mean, it's also depends on whether the patient is equally technically receptive for this kind
Well, of course, we also have our variations for different types of people.
Exactly.
Right? So people who are not very technically savvy, we try to use a different method.
And
Right.
I definitely hope to work with you with your office in trying newer technology that can make our life better, and make your job easier. And plus, of course, outside of my work, outside of our association, also I'm doing my bit in promoting these newer technologies. Anyone that I know that has got a diabetes, whether he likes it or not, I will make him sit with me for a coffee and then give him a big lecture and explain to him, like how I got benefited and how you can also get benefited. And the good news is that these days these technologies are more affordable
Mm-hmm.
and also available across the world.
Correct.
A lot of people have come back. They have started using the technologies that I adopted, and they
Mhm.
really thank me.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's a good feeling.
that's a very good feeling.
Mhm.
That's a very good feeling.
Yeah. Thanks for coming today.
Sure.
Appreciate your
Thank you
your
very
help
much.
with us, and let's look forward to
Yeah.
more better things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool.
Good job, guys.
Yeah.